Right, I'm just going to use my gavel this time, but I kind of find it annoying to, hey, boy. And I'd like to welcome all the people from the public forum. Particularly like to welcome those people online. You can see that little symbols up there. Particularly like to welcome the staff here today. To our board members for a nice and happy meeting today, please. Not too much stress on the poor old chairman. Particularly to my area manager and my government officer, I say my, and terms of the start of the meeting, may not put it after the meeting. Welcome to our media people across there. And I'm going to, and we have one special guest here today, Mr. Walsh. Lynn Walsh is here from Mags. He's having a look to see how we operate our meeting, so please don't make it too tough for the chair. And he's also looking at how the board members respond. I just make that one clear thing today before we start, is that before you go and ask any questions, please make your attention knowing you wish to ask the question. The general will take your name down and put it to me. We won't be having open forum like a situation you just bowl and ask questions of staff. We'll be asking through the chair, please. So we keep that tight, and particularly that's for those people out there in the world of visa, because they don't know who you are. And if we announce who you are, they have a better understanding of who's speaking, who's not. Okay. I will now ask those people who wish to stand for our opening prayer at Karakia, which is going to be done by Mr. Rodney today. You don't have to stand if you don't wish to.
E nā tohu o mātou atua, o tarangi o te whenua. Hei, aote kina I e motua I ne take e whiriwhiri e tēnei wha. I raro ano I te aro o Ranganui ke ranga e Papatanuka e koutou nei. Whakamo ai hia tēnei, humie, huie, tākie.
Ko te atua, ko te ko ia nei te ariki o te whenua o te rangi namanei.
Thank you, Rodney, Councillor Rivers. No apologies today. So we're going to move on to public forum. Now, one of the things about public forum is we've got a good number here today. In fact, we have 7. So I just want to ask the board if you agree to allow an extra time to hear all the people in public forum. A full motion. Is the board in agreement to extending the time for public forum, please?
Yes. Through the chair, do you mean more per person or
No,
more time?
No. I have 30 minutes.
Okay.
6, 5 to 30. There's 7 here, so we'll need to extend time. Bearing in mind that item 2.1 is no longer on the agenda, so we do have a little bit of time up our sleeve. All right. So I just thought, otherwise we can put the chair in the biggest position and going to determine who's going to speak to. Thank you, Councillor Rowley.
Will it be fun? I'm sorry.
Might be for you, you want to sit here. Okay. Our first speaker today to address us is Mrs. Lewis O'Halloran from the Thames Business Association. You can use the lectern if you wish, or just speak, or take a seat, whichever you wish to do.
Good morning, everyone.
Oh, sorry, just before you start, just. Oh, okay. I've got 5 minutes. Followed by questions after.
I have time, but so I
Thank you.
think it'll be okay.
Yes, applies to everybody, got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Before I begin, I want you to know I do not have a hangover. My eye is bloodshot, but I've just had cataract surgery, so I can't. Quite disconcerting, so I understand you. I'm here today representing a significant number of businesses, both members of the Thames Business Association and non-members, as well as many members of the wider community. Our aim at the TBA is better business equals stronger community. And we are consistently guided by that. I am not here to discuss any of the costs incurred or the timelines, as those have already been addressed by others on numerous occasions, and I am confident that you are well aware of them. My submission is, by the way, in respect to the Mary Street / the Vibe. Our request is that you give thoughtful consideration to immediately reopening Mary Street for the following reasons. The first one I'm about to say is by far the most important. The others really aren't nearly as meaningful. First and foremost, it has become a divisive issue amongst both the business community and the community at large. It was intended as a temporary installation for 2 years and has been in place much longer than that. While we only have anecdotal evidence of its impact on nearby businesses, there have been losses due to difficulty accessing pollen from Queen, with the roundabout no longer functioning as it was intended. It no longer matters that the Vibe was poorly designed. It no longer matters that it is not as advertised and no signage was provided as promised. It no longer matters that it is not of significant benefit to the community or used effectively. And it no longer matters that it's often a hangout for people with no place to go. All of the indications and recommendations are pointing to the reopening of Mary Street, including your own survey results, when frankly, the general consensus was that the survey was slanted in favor of the Vibe in the first place. And the recommendations from WSP. The TBA's own survey, in which there was absolutely no question asked about the Vibe or Mary Street, and yet approximately 66%, 2/3 of over 300 respondents made unsolicited comments to quote, "Get rid of the Vibe," end of quote. Our final survey question, and I have both the copy of the presentation and the survey itself. Our final survey question was, if you're a resident, what, if anything, would you do to improve our town? The most common comment was, quote, "Get rid of the Vibe," end of quote. And the survey never mentioned it. So to receive this kind of response indicates it's an open wound that is dividing our town and impacting our businesses, both financially in some instances, and perhaps more importantly, in terms of the business owners or operators' mental health and well-being. The bottom line is that our understanding is that the Thames Community Board's collective role is that you represent the majority interests of the community. I put to each of you this question. If you genuinely care about the community, which includes all the businesses operating within it, isn't your choice an easy one? To immediately reopen Mary Street. If you do not listen to the majority, you, our elected Thames Community Board members, will be responsible for creating further divisiveness, which is not healthy for our community. It will become a black eye for the TCB, and people will lose faith in your collective judgment, but they'll also lose heart for the community. Excerpts from one business owner whose business is not that close to the Vibe. I'll just read parts of it. The Thames business folk continue to suffer. 3 years on, this quote, community pilot project, along with massive losses of local revenue due to the Copenhagen closure, a global recession, and this crazy weather pattern, we continue to suffer financially. So much for this being a social well-being project. It's like our voice is not heard. Bring back Mary Street, end of quote. On behalf of our businesses and the community as a whole, the TBA urges you to do the right thing and immediately reopen Mary Street. This will put an end to the divisiveness that has impacted so many businesses and our community for nearly 3 years. And it will make your collective legacy one in which we feel we are being heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Want to go and eat now?
You just wish that I just been started there, Kevin. Have you listened? stay there. Any board members have any questions of Mrs. Hurst? Being none. Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. Next one is Mrs. Cheryl O'Connell.
Back.
Oh, that's embarrassing because we've got O here.
Well,
Wrong.
that's because people don't listen these days.
I am.
Looking at your phones all the time. I'm Cheryl McConnell and I'm here with my friend Heather Fowler. We presented a petition to the community board in April 2022, which seems longer away. Heather and I were talking about it getting here. We thought it was years. It feels like we've gone great in the time. I'm here just to reconfirm that Heather and I are still of the same opinion about the bond and would like to make some comments regarding the comprehensive report that recently was posted. So that report found that people supported the idea of a fun, vibrant community space. The key issue is that the current location is not supported by the community. The area has not been used to any significance. COVID and weather events cannot be used as excuses. Changeable weather is a continuing factor. PCDC has had over 2 years to trial the space. It is still not a vibrant, fun place to be. In other words, it has not met the objectives of the plan. The report supports a community space in an area, this is the WSP report, in an area where people do come together, such as Grahamstown area. To do this, the community board will need to support and promote activities in any vibrant space, as it will not happen spontaneously. None of you are given this, no. To do this, community board will need to support and promote in any place. Identify community groups that might make use of a space, e.g. performing arts, cultural groups, educational activities, and invite them in at the beginning. Don't put something there and then tell people to go to it. Our objectives have always concentrated on ours, meaning human rights, have always concentrated on the fact that the closure of Mary Street has made the roundabout unusable by traffic wanting to travel safely to Goldfields Mall and Highway 25 from our main business area, including the hospital, the medical centre, the library, and the majority of residences in this town. We urge the community board to reinstate Mary Street as a traffic thoroughfare. We may keep the bike racks and some seating outside the Villager Cafe as it was before street closure.
Thank you very much, Mr. McConnell. Any questions, please? Good on for deafening, isn't it?
Fine.
Thank you so much. We may not need that extended times. Mr. Sangster, next speaker, please.
Cobra Katoa. I'm Sangster Tukenua. Many of you know me. Many years been here. Elaborate on that. My further address a drawing which shows the first before the local body elections, and there's a version 2. Is it able to screen those drawings, or would you have to print out? Okay, it's a version 2 that came after consultation with people, and I did a lot of street consultation. A lot of people rang me and councillors and others. My big thing about the Mary Street, Pond Street intersection is that it is not only a primary intersection for vehicular traffic, it is also pedestrian and for cycle traffic. most of you probably know that I use bicycle for most of them around town. Actually. And I worked in this vicinity, either this building or a building over there or a building on the corner for the last 29 years. And until the road closure of Mary Street was put in place, that intersection was a diabolically dangerous intersection for pedestrians. I've had this conversation with the council via submissions over the last 29 years. I know it is better now. So whatever you do, pedestrian safety needs to be paramount. So I know there were recommendations in the report, and I haven't had time to do more than just scan it. I didn't even have time to read it. I saw the three drawings and the three proposals: one closer, one keep it, or one fix the intersection. So at the very least, fix the intersection. The second part of it, we're looking for a communal public space, and I like Mr. Constantine, thank you very much. We need a community open space. We need to see some development of amenity where people want to come to town, want to see restaurants, actually want to open in the evenings. We have at the moment like 2 restaurants that open regularly in the evenings, apart from sort of some bistro type things. We don't have, we have dozens of lunchtime cafes. We have hardly anybody open at night. Thames guys at 5 o'clock. A vibrant open space for people to congregate in or meet is vital, I think, for regeneration of our town. As we know, looking around here, our median age climbs every year. We're getting older and older and older as a community. We want it. So I'm speaking to this. Talking about the vibe itself, I know I recognise two things that concern to most people. One is they can't just drive straight to the mall because they've got to use their recovery experience to get there. So in my drawing, I dealt with that by suggesting additional roundabouts on Queen Street, which would get rid of that impact of the vibe. It wasn't a problem given to that sector. So that's been in the public. That's drawing in the public eye for many years now. I know NZTA need to be involved in that. So also the other thing is I noticed there are some concerns about people who do congregate in the vibe who might not be people want. Now that I think is something that we will deal with by having urban design that is safety and security conscious. And I know that there are many landscape designers, or particularly urban designers, who are involved with that. Many years ago, we had that kind of work, and I can't remember the name of the architect model organised a workshop here, and those are the things, kind of things that were discussed. And we should talk then with the architect model about that kind of thing, or someone like that. So the two main things are convenience of travel, because it's so much easier to drive straight. The other one is whether people who do visit the vibe to meet each other are vibrant people. So both of those things I think is increased. But so if you look at my drawing, the keeping of the vibe in its place would be supported by the drawing the way I've done it. So, and I know a number of you have seen it. So I think maybe I just I'll leave it there, except for if you open the vibe, please put pedestrian crossings on all crossings, because at the moment, how it was before when I'd be coming over to the council, I would always have to dump down about 20 metres down Holland Street before I would cross the road. Because if you tried to cross the road on the corner, there might be a big left or Mary and Holland Street, the stop sign was about 50%. It's dangerous, and I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Singster. Yes, we have a question from Councillor Rodley, please.
Yeah, just through the chair. So do you have any preference as to whether the crossings that you've got here are traditional black and, well, not black, just the white stripes, or the raised traffic, the raised island things?
I think perhaps they should be both, quite frankly. I think they should be authorised through the process. So we don't have any more to say. I don't understand the red marks. I know town engineers for many years resisted the idea of border crossings and cliffs. You go any tiny village in France, every single pedestrian crossing, because they want the pedestrians to have the highest priority over vehicles. And that is what we should be doing. People don't go into shops by driving the car. Only railroads do that. So people get out of their cars and they walk up to the shops. And at some stage, every time a car driver, if they're going to a business, becomes a pedestrian, they may not themselves recognise that, but they do. So many of them.
Okay, we'll probably just keep our answer a little bit shorter. Yeah, so, yep, technical things.
No, I don't.
Any more questions down there?
I'll just, that's one.
Councillor Sinclair?
So Donald, in this map, there are four new roundabouts. I would, on the state highway,
Yes.
I wouldn't like to speak for Waka Kotahi as I do not work for them, but I would be willing to bet you a beer or a coffee.
Yeah.
That 4 new roundabouts is unrealistic in terms of what they'll provide for us. So which is the key?
Right.
If we could only get one, which was the key one?
I would say the key one would be, if you look at the majority of people coming from the upper part of town over here, the key one would probably be the one I suggested, Richmond Street.
Okay, thank you.
But we, just to say about whether a lot of Kotahi would accept something or not, this is a case of you don't ask, you don't get. So always have a wish list.
Thank you. I noticed that you actually operate your business 150 metres away from the Bible.
No, present, it's right upstairs. That, I have, as it says, it used to be 150, it used to be here, at one stage, it was over there in the old hospital, surgeon's house, and then for the last 15 years, I've operated out of CBC building. So that's 1 metre from the mile.
Right, I just read your rough, you said 150 metres.
Yeah.
So you would have had an opportunity to see what the usage was like at Bible, the number of people who was there. Did you think it was well used?
So, sometimes on really fine days, it was well used. It's certainly very well used on days when Jason and previous people have a cafe open. But less than there, we encourage people to get a restaurant into the Green Geeks building that's been empty now for 2 years. A lot of people walk through it. I walk through it, I bike through it. I bike through there with much greater safety than I ever had from Mary Street when it was opened. If it's reopened, I will not cycle along Mary Street. That's the internet. Same as I cycle on Holland Street, it's dangerous because of angle park. So they're all matters to consider. That's what I've tried to consider in the claim is a global consideration of better traffic movement for all forms of transport.
Anybody else got any further questions, Mr. Sexton? None. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The next person wishing to invite to speak is Mr. Hampton.
Morning here, elected members. My presentation will focus on 2 key points. Firstly, I just want to clarify that the objection to the vote is nothing about objection to public spaces. It's all about the location and the effects, negative effects of closing Mary Street. No one objects, not very many people object to additional public spaces. It is about where it's been voted. I'm going to focus on 2 key points. First one is the tribe. The dictionary definition of a tribe is a test of the performance, qualities or suitability of something. 305 was sold to the community in the first TCDC press release as a 2-month trial. It was then later communicated that the trial would be extended for up to 2 years, but promised that changes will be made in response to community feedback. A breaking point. As here we are now, 29 months down the track, with the track record of functional disruption, community division and petitions, and yet no changes were ever made to the trial. But finally, the results of the trial are in. Council's independent consultants, WSP, have concluded from the survey that none of the 3 trial objectives have been fully achieved. In their view, the intervention may have negatively affected businesses due to street closure, I know that for sure, and contributed to safety concerns. Most concerningly, there was also a resulting lack of buy-in from the wider community In their words, this means that it is not possible to recommend that the vibe is made permanent. Therefore, the trial has failed. But of course, the majority of the Thames community has known that for over 2 years, having eyewitnessed the emptiness and underutilisation of the vibe on a daily basis. As you know, I'm directly opposite the vibe. I see it on a daily basis. The impact of the trial on business has largely been negative. Only 12% of businesses surveyed said that they benefited. 36% of survey respondents are discouraged to come to town as a direct result of the vibe. In these extremely difficult economic times, we don't need to manufacture additional road closures that block access to CBD. People's livelihoods and business sustainability are significant factors in supporting a thriving community. The second point I want to focus on is project costs. The true costs of this Mary Street revitalisation project have not been transparently reported to the public. To date, the cost of this project, including concept plans, land purchase and other project-related costs, are now well over $300,000 of Thames taxpayer dollars. Add the Waka Kotahi contribution of $355,000 and the total current cost of this trial to date is now approaching $700,000. But wait, there's more. Should the elected members approve option 1 to make the vibe permanent, Council's consultants, WSP, advised the additional cost to be between an additional $500,000 to $1 million, amounting to a total projected spend of up to $1.7 million of public money for a small public space that is not wanted by the majority of the community and is pretty much not used by anyone. In conclusion, the trial has ended and has failed to meet its objectives. Budget with over $300,000 of ratepayer money already spent, surely there is no budget available to retain the vibe. Community mandate. The majority of the community wants Mary Street open. There is no community mandate to retain the vibe. Any elected member voting against removing the vibe today is clearly saying to the public, I know better. My interests are more important than yours. Now is the time for you to listen. The community at large has spoken. As our elected representatives, you are entrusted to make decisions that represent the community at large, not just the view of your individual social bubbles. A vote to make the vibe permanent is unconscionable. Remove the vibe, open the key route of Mary Street, and let's get our town centre operating functionally again for the benefit of both businesses and the wider community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hampton. Any questions for Mr. Hampton, please? I noticed that you so probably the closest business that I'm aware of, who I know, there. There's been some discussion about the dangers of moving around that intersection. I know myself traveling there to get the car stopped short of the red line. I don't know, waving you across or they drive past it, whatever. Have you, in your place of business, have you ever experienced any accidents in that area, close calls in that area surrounding that?
Absolutely. As you know, we've owned the business for over 60 years now. So pre-vibe and post-vibe. There are more close calls on that intersection now than ever before. The number of car horns that sound are more than ever, and I believe that this is caused by the red pedestrian curving. There is one significant incident where a car pulled up to let a pedestrian cross suddenly, and a car went up its rear, and the two cars were then locked together, and the fire brigade and police all attended, and they had to disconnect the two cars to open it up again. The red strips are a serious harm incident waiting to happen, the number of times it occurs. And I don't see personally that Mary Street was dangerous beforehand. With traffic calming to slow the speeds down, the distance to cross any of those streets at that intersection are not wide. And they are the same configuration of every other intersection on the street. I don't think there's a case for pedestrian crossings. I do think there is a case for traffic calming, which I've previously given you a proposal and plan for an alternative to the bike.
Member Mackenzie was about to question.
Morning, Greg. I'm just reading your paperwork here, and you say at the beginning, the dictionary definition of a trial.
Yeah.
So when I read through here, and you talk a lot about the majority of the community.
Yeah.
So the definition of majority means the greater number.
Yeah.
But yet the survey was only from 1,457 people. So I feel like I understand where you're coming from when you talk about that, but
yeah.
It's obviously not correct. Only we've got roughly 7,000 people in Thames. So the majority of the community didn't say that it's, not used.
So respectfully, I would disagree with that view.
Yeah.
I think if you look at council communication over the years, this would have to be the most responded to survey that I have ever known. The Karakia Cycle Trail, I think, got 400 people. Long-term planners have very few submissions. The history of consultation, I've been in council. Consulting with the community is the most difficult thing to get engagement.
Yep.
15,000 people, 1,500 people respondents is a massive response. And it is quite a significant sample, percentage-wise, of the community. So, respectfully, I have to disagree.
Thank you, Captain. Councillor Rebel.
Thanks, Greg. Could you just clarify, please, how you arrived at your figure of 700,000 in the report that we have that talks about 336,000? Well, you asserted 700,000.
Yeah, so that's adding so that talks about public money. So it adds the Waka Kotahi. So, I've provided the estimates. I have communicated those estimates for clarification with the chief executive and staff on a number of occasions, and those figures have never been denied in response.
Any further questions for Mr. Hampton? No. Good try. Okay, thank you, Mr. Hampton.
Thank you, appreciate your time.
Jason, Lydia, please, Mr. Lydia.
Morning, everyone. I'm going to share with you the story of the last 12 months of myself being a business owner, operator, a member of the community in this lovely town called Thames. What brought me to Thames was the fact that a farming life won't find me true love. The county was not the place for me. After a number of years, I discovered that. And when I first came to Thames, I looked around the town. I was looking to buy a business. I was looking for the right location. I was looking for the right people. I was looking for the right opportunity for me to pour my love out into this town. When I first came and saw the villager, I sat in the vibe. I looked at the cafe. I looked at the interaction. I looked at the space. I felt the people. I knew the villager was going to be my home for a considerable amount of time. And therefore I bought the business. What I didn't realise that I was buying was a large number of wonderful people out there that would eventually come to my door. Because I decided that the vibe was a space I was going to pour my heart and soul into every day. And when you work as a farmer, there's no time off. There's no such thing as a week. There's no 7-day week. There's no 5-day week. Sorry. It's a 7-day week. And that's what I did. So for the last year, 7 days a week, I've opened my cafe and I've opened the vibe to the community, to anyone who will come. And yes, the vibe has attracted challenges along the way, both in terms of revenue, both in terms of people's feelings about the space, and both in terms of the people who inhabit that space. And I've given 12 months, I've given everything to the vibe. Every day I set it up, I make sure she's clean, make sure she's well dressed, I make sure people have somewhere to sit, people have shelter from the rain and from the sun. Yeah, I make sure my doors to my cafe are open. And I invite people to come. They don't need to buy from my cafe. They can share the space, they can sit. So it is with great authority that I can talk about the vibe. Because it has been my vibe for the last 12 months. Audience living. I've read the 48-page report. It's full of problems. It's full of assumptions. It's full of snapshots of time. It doesn't provide you with my view, and I want to share that view with you now. So the view is that given all the challenges we have with it, we do have it. It is here. It is work right now, and it does work for the community. I have helped people multiple times out of my window of my cafe find a better place. I've helped the homeless, the general public. I've helped the tourists come. I've helped the young people of this town
1 minute.
find a place. And I've asked them about what they think of the vibe, because they're the future generation. They're the ones that are going to come and take over that space one day. But the question I have for us is, what do we want to show the young people of this town and the wider community about what we can do given a community space where it is right now? Yes, we've spent a lot of money on it. Yes, it's not perfect. But I think it would be a total tragedy to throw it away.
Any questions, Mr. Lydiard, please? Ben, so nobody asked a question. When you say it's relatively busy, I probably live the closest to the vibe and go past there on a daily basis. I've never been overwhelmed by the number of people there or underwhelmed. What would you call a busy vibe? 20, 30 people, 40 people? Or just people you're visiting?
A busy vibe. In my mind, the vibe is always busy. There's always someone there. There's always. From the time I open the cafe at 8 o'clock on any given day, there's always somebody there. It's never really empty. I think the vibe's been not given a fair chance. We've had major events. We've had COVID-19. The day after the second lot of alert levels went national in New Zealand, the vibe was opened. It's some very unfortunate timing for a wonderful town's public space to be opened, and then for everyone to be told they can't come to it. Aucklanders can't travel down to it.
My question was, what?
Yeah, it was clear.
What?
It's
You're thinking of busy time, 10, 15 people?
I think in the current climate, we're middle of winter, are we going to talk specifics? Are we going to be right now? On a daily basis, the traffic would probably hit about 100 people using the via on winter's day.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jason.
So, our next speaker is Mr. Mr. Flag.
Thank you, Adrian, Council. Nice to see you today. I've been here before. But I've been coming up to Thames since the late 60s. And I used to love Potery as the most wonderful place in the world until national government decided to make it illegal for hostels to be established around with boats. There was a disaster on Lake Waikaremoana and a family drowned. So that was a national consequence. But beautiful place where I had my family, my kids visit many times. Anyway, I support reducing the road limit on Pollen Street to 30 kilometres an hour for safety reasons. And also for legal reasons, because I think eventually the council will get sued because of not providing a duty of care. I think it's essential that people feel safe, and if there are injuries, will lessen the consequences. People in Thames, they tend to just want to cross wherever they like, and we're not going to be able to train them to change. And likewise, only about half the drivers bother using their indicators. So unless we send them all to driving school and educate them, I don't think the education is going to work in this case. Thames people seem to have an individual way of driving. They like doing U-turns around the corner and on intersections, which is the most dangerous place to do it. And they seem like that's okay. One person does it, then they all do it. But anyway, the other issue that I'm concerned about is the lack of a proper crossing on the corner of Richmond, or near the corner of Richmond and the highway, which belongs to the National Roads Board. And I've lobbied both with the council in the past and with the National Roads Board. But all they're interested in is having a high traffic flow unimpeded. But that's a safety issue, and a lot of people from the village there, I used to live just adjacent to the village, a lot of those people are at great risk because they can't move fast. I can't move fast anymore myself. But I live down there on Richmond Street, and that place needs a crossing, a proper crossing. Not just a silly little traffic island you have to rush to between the gap and the constant traffic going down the road. Sometimes I've waited there a quarter of an hour to get across. So it's ridiculous. So those are two local issues. And the other local issue is how the council gets elected. Currently, sort of moved back to first past the post, but that wasn't always so. 20 years ago, Dan Mackinson, Nee Spicer, who is from Matatoki, and I sort of led a campaign to change the voting system to a more fair system. With first past the post, you only have to get 10% of the vote sometimes to get elected, because if you've got enough candidates and everyone's getting a little bit of the pie, someone with 10% of the vote gets elected. It's a totally unfair system and shouldn't be used at this day and age. STV.
Listen, that unfortunately, the community board's not the one that makes that decision.
Yes, but I think you need to be aware, because I get feedback from different members of council that you don't have the option for STV, or you do, because you've had it in the past.
I understand. I've been elected on both systems.
Yes.
So I do understand.
Yes.
So, any questions from Mr. Platt, please?
Thanks, Gurley. Going back to 30K, yes. Which part of Pollen Street would you see that applying?
From Richmond Street right up to Cochrane. Thank you for the question.
And yes, Councillor Rodley.
Just through the chair. So, have you seen the draft speed management Thames
No, I haven't.
plan?
I was away for 7 months.
Oh, okay.
And then came back in January.
Right.
Since then, I've sort of been more aware of issues here and so.
Yep.
But it's been a wonderful place over the years, but we've lost so much culture here. So many of the wonderful old buildings have been demolished. It happened like that in Australia with Sydney and Melbourne. Melbourne kept all its nice old architecture. Sydney wiped it out. Any other question?
You need to come and sit here with the plan. Councillor Fink's here.
Yeah, Dara. Have you caught up with the Future for Local Government report that was done by the panel for the future of government and,
No.
and their recommendations around STV?
I haven't lately, but I know because we had it already. It's supposed to be citizens can ask for it.
Yeah.
Council, of course, doesn't want it because they can get elected just with a block vote.
Okay.
But we want fairness. We want fair representation. With STV, you have to get over a quota. So it actually ensures you get more support. Like in an electorate, so you had 4 candidates, or you had a number of candidates, but you had 100 votes.
Yeah.
Well, you have to get 25 and you only got 3 positions. You have to get 25 plus 1. So it ensures that those that are supported have got general support instead of the current situation where people can elect just with a lucky block vote.
I suggest that you go to the Thames Community District Council Public Forum.
Well, I think you people were pretty influential as well, sir.
Oh, very much so. I'm not here for making decisions about how you go, but
I'm sure you are actually. You've only got spear, I think.
I'll phrase this as a question. Are you aware that the council is making a decision on that next week?
Are they going to be positive and towards it, do you think?
Yeah.
I haven't read the paper yet. I just know that it's coming on our agenda. So you're welcome to the public forum on Tuesday.
public forum, same place,
Next week,
different time.
9 o'clock,
9 o'clock next.
Tuesday.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dan. Well done.
I like to get out, my son's arriving from Melbourne. We were going to go up there.
Next one is Mrs. Effort. Yes, please. Liz. You may use the lectern or sit if you prefer.
I'll stand in case I don't.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me this time. As you know, I'm an adamant advocate for the people less fortunate abilities of in this town. And the first thing that I've got on my list that is greatly distressing me is the lack of communication, respect and follow-up by the TCDC staff. A lot of our staff, and there was an example shown this morning, they hear you or listen to you, but no financial fact has been ignored.
Excuse me, we can't,
No,
excuse me.
Yes.
All right, I don't have to use my gavel so soon. We can't entertain any discussion about staff or criticism of staff at the open forum. So do you have something which is like about the vibe or something like that? But those issues, if you want to take those issues up, then I suggest you take it up with the mayor or something like that, or one of the councillors, by all means, if you feel that way, but we're not here to discuss about staff or things like that. Thank you.
I can finish. I've got 3 things.
Yeah.
To do. So as I say, when we go out into the public place and we are watching or going to speak and ask somebody who is there talking about the red bins and trying to explain to us how they're going to be so really wonderful, etc. I had an 84-year-old friend with me who is very crippled in her hands, and in 20 seconds she had had that label taken off. This is the red bin system is causing tremendous distress amongst a lot of people in this town because of the fact that a lot of them put their bins out at night. And they put their bins out with their labels on it, like a lot of other places around the country that have got those easy peasy plastic take-off labels. They're going to go out and find that their bin's still there when the collection's gone around because their label had been stolen. Now that could have been averted if they had used the plastic top, like you can use in the garden or if you're into electrics or whatever, you put that on. Once that's on, you can't take it off. But if the machine that's going to open it, however they pull it or what have you, then it could be cut or what have you to be done to empty that bin. Might take an extra minute or two, but it will stop a lot of people having that distress about not being able to have their bins empty. The unique thing with the red bins is that there are a lot of people in this town, keeping in mind, Thames has around about 67 to 75% of its population have disabilities or are elderly. They are not necessarily able to take that bin out if it's going to be heavy for rubbish. Some of them struggle with one bag, blue bag. How are they going to be expected to pull up a little incline? I mean, I never think of the incline out of Tararoo where my friend lives. She's 98 and she's got her light cardboard bin. She said, I don't know if I can take this up today because it's 2/3 full. And I'm thinking, well, how will she get on with the red bin? Yes, if you really hunt around, you can find that you can apply to have someone come and collect it. So be that. But the other thing I mentioned did a little bit of cross-referencing. Belclutha is a population and it has 18,600 all up. I couldn't get a town population for the whole of their district. They have had the red bin down there for about 15 years or more, and they don't charge for it. Now, I have been informed that by 2030, governments say that you will have to charge for it. They don't charge for it. They have the red bin one week, the yellow bin the next week. We've got a population for the Thames town of 7,680 as per the information I got last night, which they're going to be charging them. So they get 7 years of however many houses or residents that they've got red bins out there at $8 a ton that they're doing. That's going to be a really good income that they're getting. But yeah, very quickly, I want to get on to a couple of other.
You have 1 minute left.
It may just run over a little bit because we had the discussion with you before. Ramray, there was an article in the profile on the 26th, and it's a person wrote in, they did not disclose their name about the Ramray concerns. TCDC did a response. They named that person from a letter that they'd obviously seen, and they put that in the paper. But when they signed it off as TCDC and didn't give their name. But they also gave misinformation. They informed in it, and I quote, Thames Community Patrol, which operates after hours and works with them, they suggest that she makes contact with them on a proposal that identifies what is needed for Thames and the likely costs. I'm a volunteer in that organisation. We've got lots of system that goes with, we do not need someone out there, be it the council or anyone else, telling them how to run something that they desperately need for volunteers. It's a shame when things come like that. But back to the other, please, TCDC, when you make the decisions, consider the elderly and the disabled because they are under a lot of stress at the moment. They've had their copper wire telephones taken out of line and there are people out there with no phone. Now they've got the red bins and some of those elderly are very sick because of it. And one last point. Holly, I'm sorry.
One last point, sorry.
I just wanted to say to Holly that she got the biggest one.
I'm going to ask anybody who's got any questions for you, please. Any people ready to have a question for you? Sorry, Ben, we've got quite a heavy.
Only 1,400, they were adults. The 70,800 are children included in the statement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being today. I'm just going to have a discussion with my government officer, with the Board of Government officer. Oh, we just have a late, Council Rebel. We have a late request to dress up. Everybody's comfortable with another speaker. We've had an allocation of speakers. This is one of your heads. Is that what it is?
It's fine.
Okay, are you happy?
Yes.
Yeah, provision. Is it Mr. Million, is it?
My name is Kelly.
Sorry?
My name is Kelly. Property.
How do you spell the surname, please? So take it down. Okay, Doug. Okay, right. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Ms. Mayor, you can address me what you wish to address the
Yes,
board.
I'd love to address the board.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Thank you. Hi, this is really impromptu, but I feel that I have an opportunity here and so I've been listening to what has been going on and I'd like to address you. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. My name is Kelly. I'm a long-term resident of Coromandel. I've been here for 20 years. And recently, 3 years ago, I bought a property on the Thames coast. So my children have grown up here in Thames. I have a 16-year-old son and a 19-year-old daughter, and that's why I felt inspired to speak with you on the matter of the flag. Because I feel like that demographic is really underrepresented in the argument, in the survey, and in the analysis. I can speak on this because I grew up, my father was a town planner and a strategic planner in local government in Australia, and I witnessed him implement traffic calming and public spaces by closing roads in Launceston, in Geelong, and in the Free Track Council, which is next to the Gold Coast in Australia. And as a teenager, I was so grateful that my father was doing this for the younger generation because it was always controversial, it was always difficult, but it was always a brave decision to make for the younger generation. And this is what I see in the vibe, is it has been a brave decision. We've gone out on a limb and trying to do something different. There will always be controversy, but the space there is loved by my teenagers, by my teenagers' friends. They really just enjoy the freedom to be able to have a place right in the centre of town that is non-commercial. I think this is the benefit of that space, is that it's a place where people can actually be in town and experience the town without needing to participate in shopping or commerce. Because that's what the younger generations are not really there for. You know, they come back from school, they enjoy to be in town without needing to kind of be busy and doing things. And so I've watched various projects of my father struggling to implement different things, and there was often a lot of opposition from business and from public servants who are the other generations. But as a teenager and a young person, I was so grateful that there were people in local council who had the bravery to make these decisions. And I saw these places grow, and they were beautiful spaces, and they actually allowed the participation of the younger generations to have some investment in the local town. And there's talk of putting it elsewhere, in Gravestown or down further. It really is a powerful statement to create a place that's right in the heart of Thames, that is open and available to everybody. So yeah, that's actually all I want to say, but I do want to
Thank you very much.
speak from my young self and congratulate those people who have had the bravery to make this choice.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Yep.
Yes.
Through the chair.
Member McKenzie.
I just want to thank you for coming up and speaking on behalf of the younger generation. Unfortunately, the voices don't get heard enough, so thank you for doing that. My question to you is, what did you have when you were in your youth and you talk about these spaces that maybe the vibe is lacking?
I think one of the things that came through in the report, which I read, was that it was a tacky space, and that was something that had been analysed and replicated in trials in other towns, that it wasn't fully landed. So people didn't really get to experience the full benefit of a space because there's astroturf and it's a bit, you know, it hasn't really landed as a proper space, but the artist's impression of what life could really be with trees and with sculptures and other interactive spaces, I think that is something that people can feel really grounded and really use.
Yeah.
And it's one of the problems with the trials is it's not a fully evolved space, and It also hasn't been, people haven't really been able to land there because it's been controversial.
Yep, thank you very much.
Any further questions? Sorry, councillor Rodley.
Yeah, so you're talking about, you didn't feel that you felt the youth were represented, so you said you read the report, so I'm assuming you're aware that 85% of the respondents to the survey were over the age of 35.
Yes, that's what I.
Thank you.
Youth don't generally get involved in civic processes. It's very difficult.
Thank you.
Any further questions? There being none. Thank you very much.
Thank you for giving me the time.
That's okay. Thank you to everybody who came today and made submissions. You can remain here if you wish, or you can go. I have to you.
When you actually make a decision, or? Okay.
We always make decisions.
Okay.
Sometimes good and sometimes bad.
After we tea break,
So,
we make.
so again,
I would, we accept comment from speakers.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
Sorry.
But
I'll second that.
the same.
Excellent.
I'll second that.
So, yeah. So, really, somebody said about the sketch people receives to Lewis O'Halloran, Cheryl McConnell, John Sangster, Greg Hampton, Jason Lydia, Grant Platt, Ruth Edward, and Kerry.
I must congratulate the chairman.
So, somebody get moved that please, moved by councillor Rodley, second by councillor Sinclair. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, they're carried. Okay, any items not on the agenda, please? 1.4, the agenda. No items not on the agenda. Any conflicts of interest? Somebody mentioned, one of the councillors mentioned to me the other day, when we do come to discuss the vibe, and they said, oh, because people made opinions about the vibe or to discuss the vibe or whatever. I do not see the vibe as an area of conflict of interest. It's an area of common interest to all of us. It'd be exactly the same if I was to make a submission on dog registration by owning 2 dogs, that wouldn't preclude me from making that. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no conflict of interest amongst the members here today regarding the vibe. So feel free later on to come to discuss it. You can do so for the clear. Yes.
Just through the chair. So you say items not on the agenda. So one of the items under property and facilities, the licence to occupy council car park has been taken off the
Correct.
agenda. Is there an opportunity, and maybe we can talk about it at morning tea time, to discuss some elements of that item, even though it's not officially on the agenda? I'd just seek some guidance from
So
government.
you want to do a cup of coffee?
Oh, no, I mean, maybe that could be discussed with the governance people over the coffee and then a decision made when we come back. I mean, I just don't know if it's appropriate or not, if it's being taken off the agenda.
Oh, yeah, but us, yeah, because Janet was the one that dealt with it.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you. That's good.
yeah, and they have, you gave the reason, didn't you? Email, the reason that's not on the agenda in the email.
Yeah, appreciate that.
All right. Yeah, I wouldn't want to start doing too much in the council council. Not with, people sitting in the room.
No, that wasn't my intention. I meant the governance people could discuss whether it was appropriate to discuss it during the morning tea break.
Tea break.
All right.
Thank you.
But it's, yeah,
Oh,
minutes, 146, minutes confirmation, but somebody care to move the Thames Community Board to the minutes of Thames Community Board meeting held on the 21st of June, which was down the year 2023, moved by member Johnson. We have a second, please.
Yeah.
Councillor Sinclair.
Cheryl's gone, but I'm pleased to see that we spot her name correct in minutes. They're so detailed.
Oh, right.
Just been cheeky again, Adrian.
So, if I look at my all those in favour, please say aye.
No.
Those against, any matters arising from the minutes? Okay, now, that Tim's correct. Having none. So 2.1 is removed from the agenda, applicant withdrew application for licensed stock applied, want to refer to Councillor Rodley. Yeah. You all said, yay. Accept the minutes, correct. Everybody's information?
Mhm.
Yep. Okay. So, but 3.1, the Thames Community Board CAPEX work program, 22-23, and other operational information updates. I'd like to welcome Mr. Hinson to the meeting, please. And we had a meeting, we had a discussion with Mr. Hinson, said that there's no questions too difficult for him to answer. Is that correct?
The chair, I have no recollection of that.
I think we do the discussion first and we'll move the, receive the CAPEX program after we had a discussion. So I said this has been a revised way of doing things, quite the normal practice.
Yeah, so good morning, board. Through the chair. So obviously this is the first one of these update reports for this financial year. So there are some things that you'll notice that are different to what we normally do. The first thing is that because it's the first report of the year and projects are only just starting, what we've given you up front there is just a list of the projects for this financial year, who's responsible for them, the scope of works just briefly, and the budget. So next meeting, we'll be coming back to the board and you'll return to that familiar format that we have, where we have update comments, we have a RAG status, we have financials showing how much we've spent through the year and what we're projected to spend. So this is just a kind of one-off one, just to kind of get us going for the financial year. The other thing you'll notice is that it's probably less projects than what you typically used to. And that's obviously council had to go through a process in the annual plan, looking at right sizing the capital program from financial and deliverability considerations. And so this program across all the 5 board areas is smaller than what it typically would be, as we've had to create space for delivering all the storm recovery works, both from a resource perspective and financially. So this is the list of the projects for Thames. Happy to take any questions. Below those CAPEX items is the other information, which is often by your area manager, by Rose, or any operational updates. So yeah, happy to answer any questions around any of that.
Thank you. Councillor Rodley.
Would it be, through the chair, would it be appropriate for you to briefly tell the board about the changed role within?
Yeah.
I know you've done that for the other community board.
Yes, about myself.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I can do that. Yep. So, so through the chair, so we've been busy working on a bigger program of works around resilience across the district with Waikato, around the state highway network, and around 3 of our key road networks, being the 309, Tapu Corrigley, the road north to Colville, and Kennedy Bay Link, which goes through Tuatiawa. So we're working with Waikato Regional Council, Department of Conservation, to really try and do a good job looking forwards over the next 10 to 15 years around making sure that we're investing in getting enough money, government money and local money, to deliver a resilient network for our customers, particularly since the January and February cyclone events. Obviously, the connectivity across the district has suffered, and we want to make sure we're doing a good job. So we're kind of alongside Waikato, so there's a big load of work in that space. So so we've had a change, which is official as of Monday coming up. Where I'll kind of step into that space.
And what I'll do is, Mohammed Imtiaz, who's the infrastructure manager, he reports to me at the moment, he's still full infrastructure. So Mo will kind of come out from in my team and he'll sit alongside us at the leadership team table. And that will free me up a little bit to get into some of this other space as well as a couple of other things. I'll still have all the parks and reserves, libraries, halls, projects, asset data, by way of the infrastructure stuff particularly. So yeah, so it'll be a good move, interesting move. I think that will help us position ourselves into the future. So
with regards to that, the roading, I understand. Is it the FAR system? You got 91 cents in the from Wakatahi towards.
So through the chair, so the FAR financial assistance rate is the money we get from Waikato from government. So our normal rate is 51%. So they give us 51 and council ratepayers fund 49%. During a bad year with storms, once you've spent more than 10% of your operating budget on storm repairs, then you go to 71, you get 20 cents in the dollar extra, so up to 71. And then when we've had the big storms in January and February, you can apply and get an even higher rate where we've got 91% for a period for certain types of works. They have different categories of works across what you can do around response, initial response, recovery, rebuild, reinstatement, all those kind of things. So it does get quite complicated, so I won't get into that level of detail. But we're always, I suppose, I'm sure that I think the members that we're always pushing as hard as we can to get as much money as we can out of government to lessen the burden on the ratepayers as we move forward.
Yeah, most of those areas outside our patch anyway, it's a terrible corridor. Yes, Councillor Rodney.
Is it appropriate to ask a question that's about this CAPEX that where the particular road isn't mentioned, but it's probably under roading renewals or something, or would that be better to take that offline?
Through the chair, I don't know until you ask it. So yes, because you mentioned roads up coast, but I've had some queries around Neesville Road. Yes.
The area that was there was an undercut on the bridge.
Yeah, so yeah, just so through the chair, just quickly, we have had some issues on these as well as a number of roads. And so obviously we've had, there's over 50 sites across our local roading network that were impacted by that storm event. So what the team have done is they've prioritised all those works from top priority all the way down. So obviously priority based on number of vehicle movements, number of communities impacted. So what that means is roads like Neesville, where there's a few properties up there obviously, and so those properties are impacted, but it's a dead end road, it goes in, so it's not carrying a very high number of vehicles. So unfortunately for those residents, that is going to be prioritised at a lower priority than some of the other areas where we've got a lot of traffic going over those sections. So we have to work and prioritise those. We will obviously get a number of sites moving at once, and so things will start moving. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what the priority is for Neesville Road right now, but I'm happy to come back and let you know when we think we'll be getting into that one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Just 2 things. Firstly, just clarifying that everything we see here is reflecting everything that's in the annual plan that was approved 3 months ago, right? So everything that was in the annual plan was reflected here.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Secondly, how do we get visibility of the roading thing? Because although we've got the coast, which is Wakatahi, it's not ours, but it actually has a big impact for our residents.
Yeah.
So I kind of think it would be useful at our community board meetings to be updated and made aware of those priorities you're talking about, and so on, because we get asked those questions.
Sure. So through the chair, so what we are doing, my team at the moment are busy pulling together information so that we can communicate across the whole district around all those priorities to try and provide some kind of graphic, maybe like a map with locations that people can actually click on, like slightly interactive, and give you a little bit of information. We'll be able to colour code them to show people where in the process. So there's probably 5 or 6 steps for each area of work that's required. So initially it'll be an initial investigation, it might be detailed geotech, might be the second stage, might be concept design, detailed design, approval, tendering, and then actual construction. And so the idea is to have different colours for those different steps so that we can colour each of the sites so that anyone can have a look at any time and see, okay, we can see where things are. These sites are now in construction, these ones are in tendering, these ones we're still waiting to get the geotech done. So the idea is to try and communicate in an easily digestible way for our customers and our elected members. So we're working on that at the moment. I know my team are working with Lorna's team and with our IT team to see if we get what we can do around that. So, and I'm happy that, you know, moving forwards, let's have discussions with Waikato and see what information we might be able to get from them to be able to update elected members as well.
Thank you. Yeah, that's quite exciting, to be honest. Look it up, get it okay. Yes. Member Ruckwan.
Through the chair, good morning, Bruce. I've got two questions. Regards for Topo Marine Project and Forest Park. Do we have enough funding to complete those projects? Or if yes, that's good. If not, how much short?
Through the chairs at the stage, we believe we have enough funding for those projects. Yeah, both of those are adequate. At this stage, there's contingencies built in. So we're tracking, particularly on Kopu, we're tracking the contingency very tightly, and things will come in because that's what always happens in projects. But it's got a reasonable contingency, and we'll track that to make sure that we kind of have any early warning of any issues, which are obviously we can come back to elected members and let you guys know if there's an issue. But at this time, we believe everything's fine. We're on track. We're well within our contingencies, so we're comfortable.
Thank you.
That's excellent. What we'll do, I think there's a Hanson that is on page 70 on my document, must be the same as yours. I think we'll just go down through the CAPEX program, line by line very quickly. So there's library books, parks, open space, or anybody just jump in if you've got a question on that. Swimming pool, lifters, then Port Park. Port Park, I have a question and a concern. I see. I don't know whether this is meant to be written here, but creation of destination playground and changing place to toilet facility, capital cost to be reimbursed by donations. So who's covering the capital cost of $854,561?
So through the chair, that project is funded entirely by external donations, so it's not funded by ratepayers.
Oh, that's
I think that's what that means. It probably could have been worded slightly better.
yeah.
But that's what it means. It's trying to convey that it's not a ratepayer funder activity. It's funding from one particular donor and then other donations around some of the smaller items.
So on the minutes of the Port Park meeting held on the 11th of July 2023, under Libby Don's house, Speak to Karen regarding going to council request the project fund be increased to 2 million.
So through the chair, that fund has been increased to 2 million. So that's under the chief executive's delegation. So the delegation the chief executive currently holds is if works are being funded by external funding 100%, then there's a ability under that delegation for the chief exec to make those changes. There's no impact on the ratepayers for funding that.
Right.
So, yeah, so that.
So the chief executive will get external funding for that.
Yes, that's yeah.
Anything that doesn't cost them. Anybody else have any questions? Quickly go down that line. First part rehabilitation and streetlight renewals. I suppose we could probably ask on behalf of board member Aqua about the flag tracks.
Yes.
Please.
Through the chair, I haven't had an update on the flag tracks. From my understanding, everything's moving ahead regarding replacement of any, I think it was 3 or 4 that need replacing, but yeah, 3. So yeah, it should also be happening. There's no issue around that. Those are under our asset register under a parks. Those tracks, the street, obviously the street lights are under the roading asset, but the tracks are under a parks asset. So that should all be happening. Team are well aware of what we need to do, and that's what the solid's.
Excellent. Okay, if you're renewal.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just through the chair, around the streetlight renewals. So I've put a request into the RFS service to try to get some indication about how many requests we've had for streetlights in Thames over the last few months, and if it's more than what might be normal. But just anecdotally and looking at looking at social media, and I was having a coffee the other morning, and someone gave me this piece of paper saying streetlights out in front of an A-frame roof house on Ferguson Drive. There does seem to be a lot out at the moment, and I know that we've been told to get people to raise RFSs, but again, anecdotally, people were telling me that when they ring up about streetlights, they're just being told, oh, well, that's gone to Powerco, not really anything to do with council, and Powerco are busy doing other jobs. So it does sort of seem that that's just kind of going off our radar, and I'm just concerned that that people aren't feeling safe with darkened areas of town, and whether that needs some sort of more proactive approach from staff or elected members. We could drive around and say this street, to try to get a better approach to that.
Yeah, through the chair, it's a good point. It's unfortunate that council end up, we're a little bit kind of trapped in the middle of that one a little bit. So we do say, obviously, come through our system, load a request for service of street lights.
Still going.
Load a request for service if the street lights are out. Normally, if it's, and we had this discussion yesterday, the Whangataha board, because obviously they've got some issues over there as well with street lights. Normally, if it's more than one light, if it's normally like a street of lights or an area, it's usually a power supply issue, which would be Powerco's issue. Equally, if lights are staying on during the day, that's normally a Powerco issue as well. So what we do is our customer services will send that through to Powerco. But again, we're then kind of, I suppose, at the mercy of them and their job prioritisation and getting it done. What I did say to the board yesterday on the Whangataha board is if we have issues which are dragging on for a very long time and you're getting people saying this is really not being resolved, I'm happy that elected members come through to me and I'll do what I can to try and escalate it within Powerco. But it can be quite challenging in some of those other agencies to try and get things happening as fast as we'd like.
So just through the chair, additional. So do we have KPIs with those contractors and Powerco as far as streetlights go?
So we have KPIs with our contractors, but we don't have KPIs with Powerco about how often their power should be on and making sure the streetlights are getting power. So quite often they'll have an issue around a fuse or something to do with the supply to an area, and that'll just throw out that whole street lights and they just won't work.
Yeah.
But we don't have a KPI with Powerco as such. Yeah, and I would say, if you think about it at home, when you look at your own power supply, your contract or level of service that they agree to supply you power, there'll be a period where they can have power out for. And that's just, normal. People can't guarantee 100% service. And so often I would say what would happen is if you had KPIs, that'd probably be in that period that actually they could be out for. So, yeah, they're never going to guarantee 100%. But like I say, I'm happy to do what I can do to try and escalate it and push it within Powerco. We've got things which are not getting resolved as quick as we'd like.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for commenting services there. No worries. So we quickly go down the line. Sorry, I said to use spelling there, but correct spelling. COVID Marina, which we've already discussed. Social Valley Services, stormwater. I just very quickly looked across. I mean, you can break things out forever, but the upgrade of the culverts under State Highway 25 to Waipapa Stream. That was something that the project manager said last time that there was a mistake made on which version they used of the WRC report. I think they used the year 2016 instead of the report for 2019. Does that mean that road had to be done up? Road management plan that to increase the size of the culvert?
Through the chair, I'd highly doubt it. I think it's more just around requirements of work that needs to be done around the catchment management plan for that area, for the stormwater that goes under that culvert. So, yeah, so I think from my last discussion with the team was that they're getting pretty close to resolving that one. So they're working with WRC and Waikato on both on that issue. Yeah, so I anticipate we'll get that one resolved.
Because that hinges on the subdivision getting consent. Yes, stormwater, doesn't it?
Yes, and we're obviously working with that party to make sure we can keep things moving.
I got a member of Johnson wants to ask a question.
Can I just have you clarify for me? I had heard that project was perhaps on hold due to lack of funds.
Yes, so through the chair, so council did make a call, make a decision as part of the annual plan that they kind of would pause that. Basically what we do is, and you'll see there's some amounts of money left in there, we do enough to get all the stormwater issues resolved and do enough to get the access into that subdivision. But then we'll come back as part of the LTP, so in 12 months' time, anticipate through that process about then moving into the next stages of that development. So a lot of it's actually around what we could actually deliver this financial year as well. So it wasn't like everything's sitting there ready to go and then council just said, no, let's just slide some money. It was more around, let's be realistic about what we can actually deliver. We've got to resolve some of these consenting issues. We've also got to do some other issues around land purchases. So there's some little slivers of land that we're purchasing for the project. So it's
those.
Yeah.
No, still, do I have to ask again or? So the resource consent for subdivision can still go ahead once once this so there's still funds there to purchase those little bits of land to do the stormwater and all the rest of it. Then that resource consent can still be processed and go through and everything. So it's not stopping any of that.
It's not holding anything up. No, we've been meeting with the applicants as well to make sure they understand.
That was the part. Yeah, that was the part I just needed some clarification on. Thank you. Yes.
Going down the plane, please, I'm sure a lot of people will be Albert Street, Thames, down there, so that's quite a hefty sum of money. I'm not going to ask you how you're going to operate and do it, but that I presume will control that amount of flooding we have down that area.
Yes, so through the chair, not to contradict the chairperson, but I would say that's a very small sum of money to resolve Albert Street. So Albert Street's a huge, like multi-million-dollar project to resolve.
Really?
Yeah, it's a huge project. So this is just the start of that project of getting the investigation. I think pull out all the old reports that were done 20 years ago, before the project went on hold, relook at that and get that moving. So that's going to be a very big project. So there'll be some considerations as part of their long-term plan around that project. We won't have all the answers ready for the long-term plan, but we've got to keep this one moving. The other thing that I can tell you about that we've done is that my team, we have purchased a mobile pump, like a big pump for that area down there. And so that sits with Veolia, part of their contractors. If we're getting bad weather forecast or we get caught out and there's an issue, they can get that pump down there pretty quickly. And that pump will do a reasonable job of just at least holding the ground a little bit. So whilst we're working through the investigation in a much bigger project, that pump will be useful to try and keep things under control, at least some.
Oh, even just get water out of the premises and that down there.
Exactly, yeah.
Pretty pleased with that. That's what I think, 265,000 we've done.
Yeah,
That's why I'm not an engineer.
Yeah.
Councillor Brodley?
Just through the chair, would it be worth adding a note in that under scope of work just to mention about the pump that's there? Because I think as we discussed, that's for those hour or two on each side of high tide is the big issue there. So I just wonder if that would let the people down in that area know, even though probably most of them won't look at this, that something a contingency is in place.
You can note that in the update comment for next meeting's comments. There'll be the comments updating what we've done and where things are at, so we can have that as the first comment. At least it's locked in the report.
Thank you.
Yeah. Member Rakwa?
Through the chair, I got one question about Kopu Marine project. This is my first time and I'm still learning.
Sure.
When I get the balance sheet, how they spend money with Kopu.
Yes.
This blow my brain. So spend $1,000 for the birds and cultural fund. Is it common to spend those kind of money that much?
Through the chair, yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
I feel like we can't hardly answer your question on that. So any further questions? I'm over the page now to the side. Page 80. Are you going to tell us about that, are you? You could have done from here,
Morning, members.
there's been control over here.
Project listed in the other updates. The update for the Thames Aboriginal Aquatic Facilities and the Thames Sports Partnership Project is there, and so the steering group met on 25th of July. The next meeting's on the 29th of August. The minutes from those meetings are being sent to the leads, Rob and Holly. You'll be receiving a report on the September agenda for those two projects. Just an update, and in regard to the Thames and Surround Spatial Plan, so we've received the implementation plan from Bottom School, and Leslie Bifus is leading that now. In regard to the sculptures that are proposed for the Hauraki Rail Trail, there is an update from that since this was written, and so for Interwoven, the Thames Public Art Trust has submitted a site safety plan, and just as awaiting our response on that. And for Miners Gates, WSP has provided the PS1 for the foundations, and Thames Public Art Trust will submit the site safety plan for that. For the shoreline management plan, Amon has been continuing to work on that, and as you'll know, Moana Tairi was identified as a priority on the Coromandel, and my understanding is that there has been a meeting with the residents group.
Thank you very much. Very manager. Question,
Thank you.
Councillor Sinclair.
And Rose, just going back to that first item, the sub-regional aquatic facility, I see in the actions completed, assessments continued, the short sites within the Thames area, HDC suggested part of a race course. So parallel to this, are we talking to them about whether they're partially funded?
So yes, there is discussion going on with Hauraki. They have a new community service manager who has been attending the steering group meeting along with support by Kato. And yes, so they suggested that site.
Yes, yeah, no, that's what it says in there, but and that isn't a question for the steering group, but because that's sort of outside their remit, but the funding for this at the moment around the council table looks like it's squarely with the Thames ratepayer. So are we having conversations with HDC in not that steering group, but in different capacities about whether, yes, they're happy to suggest sites, but whether they're happy to also produce some cash for that?
They haven't committed to that yet.
Right.
No. So there's two kinds of partnership. One is the partnership to plan the facility together and use it.
Yeah.
And the other, the other is the funding of it. Funding of the facilities. Financial partnership.
Yeah.
Yes, I just have it through the chair, had a question about the Thames and Surround Spatial Plan. It says on there a joint governance group is to be established. What's the makeup of that group likely to be?
I haven't got that information today, but I can find out from Leslie.
Is that attendance, that's staff only because it's an operational?
I don't have that up today, but I'll find out.
Any further questions?
That concludes my item.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Okay, no further questions in regards to that. On 3.1, the Thames Community Board receives the Thames Community Board CAPEX program 22-23 and other information. Oh, just get an update. 23-24. And other information update reported daily. Reported dated the 10th of July 2023. We have a moved by Board Member Johnson, second by Board Member Breckler. Any discussion regarding the CAPEX report? Being none, proposed to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please carry. So, using the chairman's discretion, we're now going to a break for morning tea. We have a 15-minute break for morning tea. And reconvene back in here and put on Constantine. 11:50. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, I love it. That's one thing.